Dave Portnoy just handed the WNBA its biggest wake-up call yet, and he did it with a $100 million check and zero subtlety. His offer to Caitlin Clark wasn't just a flex. It was a direct challenge to everything the league has failed to do for its most valuable asset. Forget supporting the future of women's sports. This was a blunt, public dare. If the league won't treat her right, he'll build something that will. Caitlin Clark didn't ask to be the WNBA savior.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
But that's exactly what she's become. Her rookie season isn't just breaking records. It's propping up the entire league's viewership and revenue. And yet, when Commissioner Kathy Engelbert had the mic, she didn't praise Clark's impact. She practically minimized it, sparking a wave of backlash from fans who've had enough of the league's out-of-touch leadership. The fact that one player has become the WNBA's make-or-break ticket is already a glaring red flag. When Clark plays, the ratings spike. When she doesn't, they tank. That's not a sustainable league model. That's a ticking time bomb. And Portnoy's proposal? That's the spark. He's not just some internet provocateur anymore. With Barstool's business machine and a growing list of big-money investors eyeing women's sports, Portnoy is positioning himself as the guy who could help Clark launch an entirely new league, one where players call the shots and cash in on their actual value. It wouldn't just be a threat to the WNBA. It would be a revolution. And yet, despite all this, Clark remains loyal for now. She said the right things, done the interviews, stayed the course. But this offer planted a seed, and everyone knows it. One wrong move from the league, one more tone-deaf comment from Engelbert, and that $100 million won't just look tempting. It'll look like the future. If the WNBA leadership thinks this will blow over, they're kidding themselves. The era of passive athletes is over. Portnoy just threw down a gauntlet, and Clark is holding all the cards. This is the kind of sports drama you don't usually see in women's basketball. Bold, brash, and very public. And if you've been following the headlines, you already know Portnoy's $100 million proposal to Caitlin Clark wasn't just another stunt. It was a calculated, high-stakes power play meant to do one thing: shake the foundation of the WNBA. And if Clark decides to take him up on it, the entire league could be staring down an identity crisis. Let's start with the facts. Portnoy didn't just offer Caitlin Clark a huge payday. He offered her the chance to start her own league. Her own league. Not join another team. Not sign a bigger contract. But actually leave the WNBA and become the face and founder of a rival league that could replace it. And here's where things get dangerous for the WNBA. This isn't as ridiculous as it sounds. Portnoy sees an opportunity, and it's not hard to understand why. The numbers speak volumes. Clark's games break viewership records, crash websites, and trend on every platform. She's the draw, and when she's not on the court, interest dips, coverage shrinks, and the energy evaporates. She's not just a star player. She's the oxygen. The WNBA, like it or not, is becoming increasingly reliant on one name: Caitlin Clark. That's not ideal for a league trying to promote parity and build a long-term fan base. But it's the truth, and it's exactly what makes Portnoy's offer such a threat. If Clark goes, what happens to the WNBA? And to understand why this $100 million move even became a headline, you have to look at how the league, and specifically its leadership, has been treating Clark. Kathy Engelbert, the WNBA commissioner, recently made comments that were widely interpreted as dismissive of Clark's impact. Not just passive, but borderline disrespectful. That's not a smart move when your league is riding her coattails into every major sports media cycle. And it wasn't just one offhand remark. There's been a broader sense that the WNBA is uncomfortable with how fast Clark's popularity is rising, as if her influence is somehow a threat to the league's image, instead of the greatest gift they've ever received. Think about how wild that is. The WNBA, for years, has been begging for more attention, more respect, more relevance. And now that they finally have a player who's delivering all of that on a silver platter, they're treating her like a problem. That leadership misstep is exactly what opened the door for Portnoy to walk through. Because while the WNBA's top brass is pretending this is just another rookie making waves, Dave Portnoy is saying, here's $100 million. You don't need them. You could be the league. And if you don't think Clark could actually pull it off, you haven't been paying attention. This isn't 2010. This is 2025. Athletes are brands. Media empires are built on personality, not institutions. And Clark is one of the few stars in women's sports who actually has the influence, the business potential, and the backing to make something like this happen. And let's not ignore the business side of this, because Portnoy certainly isn't. He's not just throwing money around for fun. He's playing the long game. Women's basketball is growing. Viewership is up. Advertisers are taking notice. Billionaires are sniffing around, looking for a piece of the action. There's real commercial interest here. So what's the pitch? Simple. Take the WNBA's biggest asset. Give her ownership, give her equity, surround her with other top-tier talent, and launch a modern, media-driven league that understands how 2025 actually works. Stream-first, player-led, influencer-powered. This isn't just disruptive. It's potentially destructive to the WNBA. And the irony? This whole thing could have been avoided. If the league had actually embraced Clark instead of low-key resenting her spotlight, we wouldn't be here. But instead, they played it safe. They stuck to their talking points. They protected the integrity of the league instead of leaning into the moment. And now, they've made it clear. Loyalty from players is expected, but respect from leadership? Optional. That disconnect is exactly why Portnoy's offer is being taken seriously. Because it isn't just about Caitlin Clark making more money. It's about whether the WNBA is capable of evolving, or whether it's too rigid to survive a challenge. Let's not forget, Clark has shown nothing but loyalty. She's never thrown the league under the bus. She hasn't even responded to Portnoy's offer publicly. But the fact that this proposal even gained traction shows how vulnerable the WNBA is. And that's the point. Portnoy didn't have to dismantle anything. He just had to show that another option exists. And in doing so, he pulled back the curtain on how shaky the WNBA's business model really is. If one player leaving could collapse the league's momentum, then what does that say about its foundation? That's the real question. And let's be honest, other athletes are watching this unfold with laser focus. Because if Clark can walk into a $100 million deal and take ownership of her own future, what's stopping others from demanding the same? What's stopping a full-blown exodus if the right offer comes along? The WNBA doesn't just have a Caitlin Clark problem. They have a player empowerment problem. Because this isn't the 2000s. This is the era of athlete-first branding, social capital, and direct fan engagement. And right now, the league looks like it's stuck in the past, while Clark is sitting on a launch pad. And honestly, it doesn't even matter if she takes the deal. The moment Portnoy made that offer, the entire dynamic shifted. The idea that athletes in women's basketball have to stick with the WNBA or be irrelevant. Gone. Dead. Replaced with a new reality. You don't have to wait for respect. You can build your own lane. Whether or not Clark does it, she's already shown it's possible. And that's the real danger for the WNBA. Not just losing one player, but losing the narrative, losing control, losing the monopoly on women's professional basketball. They had a shot to be the league that championed their biggest star. But now, they might just be the league that pushed her away. And that kind of mistake, it doesn't go away quietly. It becomes a case study. So let's hand out some fake awards before we go. Worst timing for a power trip goes to Kathy Engelbert, who decided now was the time to downplay the player literally propping up the entire league. Most passive-aggressive league response goes to the WNBA for saying basically nothing while their highest-profile player was being offered an independent empire. And best unintentional marketing move goes to Dave Portnoy, who managed to start a revolution with a single number, $100 million. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Should Caitlin Clark cash out and become a league founder? Or should the WNBA get its act together and actually support the player who's carrying it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that subscribe button if you love chaos in high places, and stay tuned. Because if Clark ever decides to answer that $100 million call, the whole game changes. Forever. Because here's the truth that the WNBA doesn't want to hear. This isn't just a Caitlin Clark moment. This is a power shift. And once the power shifts, you don't get to reset it. You can't put the genie back in the bottle, no matter how many press releases you roll out. Portnoy's offer wasn't just disruptive because of the dollar amount. It was disruptive because it exposed just how fragile the WNBA's power really is. Caitlin Clark is a first-year player, and yet, she already holds more leverage than the commissioner. Let that sink in. This is a rookie who hasn't even hit her full professional stride, and yet the business of women's basketball is suddenly orbiting her. The media talks about her. Fans show up for her. Brands are tripping over themselves to be associated with her. And now, investors are willing to back her as the face of an entirely new league. And what did the WNBA do when all of this started to unfold? Nothing. Or worse, they downplayed it. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's remarks were the tipping point. At a time when the league could have leaned into the Clark phenomenon, they acted like she was getting too much attention. Like the problem was that she was overshadowing everyone else. That's not leadership. That's fear. And it's exactly why people like Dave Portnoy saw an opening. Because what do savvy disruptors do? They look for cracks in the system. And the WNBA has been cracking for a while. Underfunded, underwatched, and undervaluing the talent that keeps it afloat. Clark isn't the problem. She's the symptom of a bigger one. This whole situation is a case study in institutional denial. You'd think that when someone like Caitlin Clark explodes onto the scene, bringing new fans, new revenue, and national media attention, the league would treat her like an MVP-level asset. But instead, she's been treated like a PR inconvenience. And while that might work in leagues with more infrastructure or legacy, the WNBA doesn't have that cushion. They can't afford to alienate their biggest draw. And now, because they didn't treat her like the future, she might just leave and build her own. What Portnoy did with that offer was weaponize the WNBA's complacency. He didn't invent the cracks in the league's leadership. He just made sure everyone else saw them. That's why this isn't just a story about one athlete and one investor. This is a moment of reckoning for how women's sports institutions handle power. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The league needs Clark more than Clark needs the league. And the second that becomes obvious to fans, to players, and to sponsors, it's game over. If Clark leaves and starts a new league, the WNBA doesn't just lose its star. It loses its momentum, its media narrative, its grip on being the default destination for top women's basketball talent. And once that monopoly is broken, it's never coming back. We've seen this play out in other sports. Think about what happened with LIV Golf. The second someone came in with real money and a real platform, the entire power structure of professional golf changed. And it wasn't because everyone suddenly hated the PGA. It was because the players saw a better offer, a chance to own more of their careers, their image, and their income. Caitlin Clark is now in that same position. She's the type of athlete that can pull others with her. She's the gravitational force. If she says yes to Portnoy, or to any other deep-pocketed investor willing to create a rival league, she won't be alone for long. Other stars will follow. Young players will dream of joining that league instead of the WNBA. And sponsors? They'll go wherever the attention is. You think brands care about league loyalty? They care about eyes. And Caitlin Clark brings them. So if the WNBA isn't terrified by this offer, they should be. Because it's no longer theoretical. Portnoy said the quiet part out loud. You don't have to stick around here. You can own the league instead. And now the conversation has shifted. No one's talking about how to fit Clark into the league system anymore. They're asking whether the league system even deserves her. It's a brutal question, but it's fair. Because if the WNBA can't protect, promote, and elevate its most valuable player, what can it do? Let's talk numbers too. $100 million is not pocket change. It's not a flashy PR move. It's a legitimate business offer rooted in an understanding of where the money is going. Women's basketball is growing fast, and Clark is accelerating that growth. Portnoy knows what everyone else in the sports world is finally figuring out. The demand is there. The audience is real. But the structure? That's the problem. The WNBA is stuck in an old model. Slow media cycles, minimal exposure, institutional caution. It's trying to play catch-up in a world that runs on TikTok speed and headline buzz. And Clark doesn't fit into that world. She transcends it, which is why she's being given the kind of offer most athletes only dream about. Equity, power, control, and most importantly, a vote of confidence in her vision, not just her stats. It's the kind of power play that could change how all athletes, especially women, see their careers. Because this isn't just about being paid. This is about owning the thing you're building. And for someone like Caitlin Clark, who's already proven she can drive numbers, bring attention, and make women's basketball a national conversation, that's not just tempting, it's logical. So what's next? The WNBA has two choices. One, they can keep doing what they've been doing. Downplay Clark. Push team-first narratives. Hope she doesn't call their bluff. Or two, they can wake up. Fix the leadership problem. Center their stars. Modernize their business model. And earn the loyalty they've taken for granted. Because if they don't, someone else will. Portnoy made the first move, but he won't be the last. The floodgates are open. Investors are watching. Other leagues are watching. And most importantly, players are watching. And if Caitlin Clark walks away, the message she sends won't just be, I'm worth more. It'll be, you don't need to wait for the system to change. You can build your own. And that's the legacy-shaking shift the WNBA never saw coming. Now it's time to hand out the final round of fake awards. Best disruption of a stagnant sports league. Dave Portnoy for putting $100 million on the table and making the WNBA blink. Biggest self-inflicted wound in women's sports. The WNBA leadership for acting like Clark was just another rookie and not the best thing to ever happen to their brand. Most poised to start a revolution, Caitlin Clark. Because whether she takes the deal or not, she's already changed the conversation, and nothing about women's basketball will ever be the same again. Caitlin Clark doesn't have to lift a finger to make the WNBA panic. Just the idea that she could leave is enough to send the whole operation in a crisis mode. That's the level of leverage she's working with. That's how powerful her presence has become. We're not talking about someone who's been in the league for a decade. We're talking about a rookie. A rookie who, within weeks of stepping on a court, made the entire women's basketball infrastructure bend to her orbit. And the league has no idea how to handle it. They've had stars before, Diana Taurasi, Lisa Leslie, Sue Bird. All incredible, all legendary, all important to the league's history. But none of them ever had the viral pull that Caitlin Clark has now. None of them walked into arenas and turned every game into a televised event. None of them had this level of mainstream crossover appeal in the social media age. That's the difference. Caitlin Clark is a 24/7 news cycle. Every play, every tweet, every foul against her becomes a trending topic. Her jersey sales spike. Her name is in headlines every day. She's what the WNBA has always dreamed of having, and they're fumbling it in real time. You'd think, with all that momentum, the league would protect her like a national treasure. But instead, we get dismissive commentary from the commissioner, bad optics, and a general sense that the people running the WNBA are more interested in equal exposure than in recognizing the reality that Clark is the show. And you know who did recognize that? Dave Portnoy. Say what you want about him, but he's not stupid. He saw the shift happening before the league did. He saw that Caitlin Clark wasn't just another player. She was a business opportunity. And he jumped on it. A $100 million offer isn't a gimmick. It's a warning shot. It says, if you don't value her, I will. And I'll build an empire around her while you're busy writing passive-aggressive press releases. That's what the WNBA leadership doesn't get. They're not just in a PR crisis. They're in a structural one. And every second they spend downplaying Clark's impact is another second they're pushing her closer to walking away. Because let's be honest, what incentive does Clark have to stay loyal if the league refuses to treat her like the star she is? She's already shown up. She's already elevated the sport. She's already put the league in headlines it hasn't touched in years. And what does she get in return? Shots from the top. Downplaying her value. Not even a whisper of public support when the online discourse turns ugly. Just silence, or worse, condescension. Meanwhile, Portnoy's out here dangling ownership, equity, and creative control. You don't think that's appealing? You don't think Clark, who's already proven she knows how to handle media, branding and fan engagement, wouldn't want to build something on her terms? Of course she would. And more importantly, she could. That's what's so wild about all this. She actually could. She could say yes tomorrow, and within a year, be the face of a new league that gives players ownership and prioritizes star power. And the kicker? People would watch. Because Caitlin Clark brings the eyeballs. And the other players know it too. Maybe they're not saying it publicly, but behind closed doors, you can bet the conversation is shifting. If Caitlin can get a deal like this, what's stopping them from negotiating for more? Why should they accept the scraps the league has traditionally offered when there's clearly money and interest waiting outside? That's how disruption happens. It starts with one deal, one bold move, one person saying, I don't need to play by your rules anymore. And from there, it snowballs. That's the WNBA's worst nightmare. It's unfolding right in front of them. But instead of responding with vision, with innovation, with any kind of long-term plan, they're trying to contain it. Pretend the cracks aren't there. Act like Caitlin Clark is just a rookie and not the economic engine that's keeping the lights on. It's a dangerous game, because here's what could happen, and everyone knows it, whether they'll admit it or not. Clark leaves. The league takes a hit. Ratings dip. Investors back out. Sponsors start reallocating funds. Players get frustrated. And suddenly, the once-in-a-generation opportunity the WNBA finally had vanishes. And it all started with one player asking for the respect she's earned and not getting it. This whole mess could have been avoided. It didn't have to be this way. All they had to do was acknowledge the obvious. Caitlin Clark is the most important thing to happen to women's basketball in decades. Full stop. No qualifiers. No asterisks. Instead, they decided to treat her like a threat to the system. Well, here's the problem. The system is broken. And she's not the threat. She's the solution. But now she might take that solution somewhere else. And who could blame her? The fans wouldn't. The sponsors wouldn't. The investors certainly wouldn't. They'd follow her. Because they already are. That's the part the WNBA can't afford to ignore. This isn't just a battle for one player's loyalty. This is a battle for the future of the league. And as of right now, they're losing it. Let's run the scoreboard one last time. Caitlin Clark, breaking records, drawing millions of viewers, single-handedly revitalizing women's basketball. Dave Portnoy, offering a bold, fully funded, potentially revolutionary alternative with a massive payday attached. The WNBA, confused, passive, and acting like it's still 2002. You don't need a crystal ball to see where this is going. So what should they do? Step 1. Admit you messed up. Publicly. Step 2. Stop minimizing Clark's value and start putting her front and center. Step 3. Evolve the business. Fast. Because if you don't, you'll be watching your top talent walk out the door while someone else builds the future you were too scared to imagine. And now we leave you with the final award of the saga. The You Had One Job trophy to the WNBA leadership for taking the biggest moment in the league's history and somehow managing to fumble it into a potential collapse. Congrats. Now it's your turn. Sound off in the comments. Should Caitlin Clark stay and try to fix the league from the inside? Or should she take the $100 million and launch something new, something better? Would you stay loyal to an organization that refuses to publicly stand behind you? Smash that subscribe button for more sports chaos, billion-dollar blunders, and corporate meltdowns you can't stop watching. Because this was just the opening tip-off. The real game is only getting started.